Okay, so now that we're underneath the bumper now, pan up here and you can see, okay, the first modification we're going to have to make is where the existing tab bracket out for the existing XJ bumper comes out, but then the JK bumper here, this lip, is overlapping there. So if at first I debated whether just to trim off the metal, just grind it down for the bumper, and I said no, this is the structural piece, so it's probably just easier to slot a little notch here in the bumper. It's going to be underneath so you won't see it, and we'll just notch it little by little until, as much as we need. We won't go crazy with it, and we can easily if need be, we can put a little bracket for reinforcement if the plastic becomes too flexible or something from that. But the plastic here is not structural. The structural part is here. There's the metal, but this is just plastic. So it's much better just to go ahead and notch the plastic. Okay, so we've already removed the factory front bumper. You can see sitting over there in the grass. And we've got, using the jack stands, we've got the JK bumper supported for mounting position. Now, this is not the final position. You can see obviously there's a gap here, which we're going to try to eliminate that gap. Okay, and then you can see obviously sticking way out the side. Okay, so you can see here now we've just trimmed the bumper and pushed back a little bit, so you can see now the gap here is much smaller. Now eventually what we're going to have to do, as you can see, it's mostly the drop from here, and then it drops down because of the feature here, which of course the original XJ bumper did not have. So there's always going to be that gap, and we'll fill that with a blank off panel, so that in the sunlight and stuff you won't see that, and it'll be more factory looking, factory fresh looking. So we can probably go back a little bit more distance. I'm sort of keeping an eye on the hooks here, and to see how that all fits, and then same thing over here. We're sort of just keeping an eye on how all this fit is coming together. But we can also show you now the underside here. Okay, so you can see now where we've notched the bumper, and that's a pretty tight fit there. But you can sort of see where we've notched the bumper, and what I was alluding to is you can still see there's still a gap here, which we could go back further. I mean, eventually, if we really wanted to make it flush, we could just cut this whole piece off, because on this side, of course, there's the front frame rail and such, and this could go, of course, all the way up to here. But on the flip side here, see, at this point, see, we can leave this part. We don't have to cut that off, because there's plenty of space to move here. Everything's perfectly centered. All the center lines match up and everything, so overall you can sort of see here I marked CL for center line. That's my mark there, which you can't see is on the top side of the bumper. I have it marked for the center, but that's dead center, and everything's centered up perfectly. Alright, so here's a quick measurement here. You can see there's the front side of the bumper, and this is essentially the tab there, so about 5.5 inches or so, give or take, that we're going to have to make up the distance for. To the next step here, and you can see what we're doing is we're taking the inner metal portion of the bumper off of the plastic. This is for easier handling of the measurements, which secretly I've already done, but this was actually the next step in the process, so wanted to make sure that this was covered. So essentially what we've done is we've gone and detached there's 4 bolts, 2 on each side. You can see the bolt's actually already underneath there. I actually already removed it. This one is in there permanently. Sometimes they don't come out as the way you want, but essentially we've removed that in order to just simply lift out, and it takes a little wiggling, a little bit here. There we are. So there's disengaged on that side, and hopefully I can get it disengaged on this side. There we go. So we just take that and lift that right out. So now you have the 2 pieces. Okay, well now that we have the inner bumper of the JK new bumper, which is, you see there on the ground, is now that that's separate, what we're going to do is we're going to measure it up. You can actually see I've already done it, but you can see the yellow marks there. That's the tape. That's actually what we're going to be doing here. Is I'll be showing you essentially how to center up everything, and we're using the tape marks instead of a magic marker to mark the center points and such. So we're essentially just going to place this up next to the Jeep. Basically, thankfully there's enough space above the bracket there, as you can sort of see that it slides back and forth. So we just basically resting that up here, and we can use this hole here in the middle, and you can sort of see my one little center mark there. So we just center it up, and it takes a few seconds. Not so easy to do with one hand while holding the camera here. So we centered that up. You may also, there may be a cord on the inside that you have to undo to get out of the way so it mounts flush. But essentially, so you can sort of see the inner bumpers here. Now this isn't the mounting position, obviously. We're just doing this to measure. Okay, so once we have it mounted up, we just use some non-gafting or some sort of tape. Masking tape is usually the easiest, easy to work with. And you can sort of see this is where the frame rail or frame component here, which the old bumper attached to, on the bracket attached to this outer side, you can start to see the small bracket here just on top. So essentially we're marking the outside with the tape and then the inside, so that when you put it right up next to her you can sort of see just how, see if I can do this, and it's going to be a little out of focus, I know, but essentially you're just measuring those two pieces there, and that makes sure that the inside, you know exactly where the inside portion is and where the bracket needs to go for the steel spacer. And then you just do the same thing on the other side. You can sort of see. And then you're going to also want to mark the top, which you can see up there. It's gotten a little messed up. I'll have to redo that one. It's gotten torn up a little bit, so we can just actually we'll take that out and we'll remark it. So again, we're marking the spot of where the bracket here goes up and touches the JK bumper at the top there, so that, and then we'll measure the inside and mark that off. Again, that's all for the so that the 5-inch spacer bracket will we know where to place it and have it perfectly centered. Okay, now having measured everything up, we've taken the bumper, we've got it back here, and we're doing some quick general alignment here. And what we've done is here's the 5-inch tube spacer, and you can see here we've mounted the we first started out where the end of it is here, which indicates where that metal where the tab is on the XJ frame. But actually what we're going to do, because which you might not immediately notice, but the 4 bolts here, which are our mounting points for the JK portion, obviously they're not covered here. So we're going to take this piece and we're going to move it over, and it'll get moved over a little bit more. I've got to grind down just a little bit of those, a little crinkle there. That is from the factory like that. And move that over so that all 4 can be mounted. Then, in order to facilitate the mounting part, and we will have to weld a bracket, but first we're going to cut about half the tube, probably right at the level of where this bumper is. We'll cut back to this point and cut half of the tubing out, so that then we can put the flat bracket in this way, and then that'll have where the bolts will mount in as previously on the XJ frame. So looks like we've got quite a bit of cutting here on this a rather thick piece of steel here. It's going to take some time cutting that down. Okay, so now the next step is here we've got the brackets trimmed out, notched out as mentioned for this scheme here. So essentially that'll allow us to have the middle piece welded in here later. It'll sort of slide in here and then come up a little bit to address the vertical alignment issue. What we're doing right now, though, because until we can actually mount it, we need to get it horizontally mounted, and that requires that that we drill the hole. So you can see here I've already drilled the one. We're working on the next, and we'll have two more, and then it'll be replicated again on this second piece here. So it's quite a bit of drilling. It takes quite a while. Flip this around. Alright, let's set it back down here. And the trick here is we have to get the jacks up, set in place. Now we're going to lift, set. Okay, so you can see here from another angle, sort of what we're looking at here is those are the three holes from the original bumper mount. See that, actually, whoops, there, and there. Okay, and then the you can see the 5x5 mounting points here, but you can see it's sort of notched. It's kind of fading there in the light, the contrast. But essentially, you know, the original bracket, if we can use maybe the original bracket and weld that to the structure, but there's sort of the spacing that we need to make sure we get just right. And that's sort of the same thing going to be on the reverse side as well. Okay, so we've now welded up the caps, your end caps, onto the tube steel. So we're actually going to go ahead and mark now the hole here. That'll be one mounting spot. And then now this one up here, because of the alignment, is actually at the top, so we won't be able to use this one as it is right here. But we have a couple options. One, we can drill another hole here, a little bit lower, which will go into the same spot. Or it can be actually both. As you get, again, you can sort of see where the outline of where the existing bracket was. The dirt still remains there. Is to create a bracket of the same sort and have it extend over. And since this plate goes all the way through, we just have to put a spacer in between. And then fasten it back in here. So we may do that as an additional strengthening. Likewise, what we've also done is up in this side is marked an available hole there for mounting, and that should get it to basically self-supporting, not structural, not road ready, but that'll be the next step. So then we'll address how to create the bracket here that'll go over, and probably do that, because that sounds about the best solution that I can come up with in this prototype to make it work. Okay, so looks like we're just about finished up here. You can see the two additional holes that I've drilled in, and that's to match up to the holes there and there. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and spray paint. You can see I've started a little bit here, so we're just making sure that we get, there we are. So now you can see when the gap shows, the red won't show really through it much. And it's not going to be the best paint job in the world, but the idea is just to get it blacked out so it doesn't show. And then if it really does show in the future, we'll just add a little trim piece in there in the gap, so no biggie there.